Ha, ha. Shields and swords, feel the wars, fighting my blood down to the core. Warriors from medieval age, fear the reign of night brigades. Crusades into the room, moving through the temples and tombs. Scared and placed, prepare to face Professor Awesome and the minions of doom. 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 Professor Awesome and the minions of doom.
Hello minions, welcome back to Professor Awesome and the Minions of Doom. I have received many questions about DragonCon 2018. As some of you know, I'm involved in organizing panels at DragonCon. Most years I speak in at least one session at DragonCon or chair panels at DragonCon. People have asked, many people have asked, where they can hear me speak. And then a lot of you, the really kind of dedicated Minions of Doom, I've gotten a lot of social media message saying, where and when is the Minions of Doom meetup? And I'm sorry to tell you that this year I have to be at Long Island University that weekend. And so I will probably not be attending DragonCon at all this year. Cue sad music here. If I can, because I'm having to drive that instead of fly, and I'll be driving back through Atlanta, there is a chance that I will be able to come in maybe for a few hours on Sunday or Monday, but I can't even guarantee that. So I have no scheduled appearances. Every scheduled time that I was going to either have a session or meet with a group, we've had to cancel all those things. But that being said, DragonCon is still pretty awesome, even without me. And so today I just want to offer a guide, a kind of newbies guide for DragonCon for people who have never been before. And I really want to encourage you to go. So first of all, DragonCon is really different, I think, in flavor than, say, Comic-Con or Gen Con, where Comic-Con, you hear the complaints, and they're probably accurate, that Comic-Con has it started off as a comic book convention, but because it was, because of its geographic location, it became a place where big movie news would be announced. And I guess in recent years, it's just been a place where, we'll just release the trailer there for this movie. But clearly that has a different flavor than, say, Gen Con, which was a few weeks ago in Indianapolis, and that is really a gaming con. And so that one is really more about going and playing different sorts of tabletop or other kinds of games with the other people there. DragonCon is much more fan-run, not industry-run. And the different tracks are organized by the fans. And so for that reason, different tracks can sometimes be really some of the best programming that you will find anywhere, better than anything you'll find anywhere else, or it can be terrible. So if you've never been, I do urge you to consider going. At the time I'm recording this, it'd be very difficult to find an affordable place to stay in Atlanta. However, if you can get there for a day trip, Friday and Sunday are particularly good days to go. I'll talk about Saturday in a little bit into why you might want to go or absolutely not go on Saturday, depending. And when you go to DragonCon, there is far, far, far too much for you to do, even if you were to stay the entire length of it, from Thursday night all the way until everyone is closing out, really Monday. That's when people really start closing out. So you should not go thinking I'm going to do everything. That is the wrong way to approach it. Or even to say I'm going to do all the major things. That's also not a good way to approach it. So let's talk about if you are a complete newbie, what must you do? Well, on Saturday, there is a parade, a huge parade that moves through downtown Atlanta. And if it is your first time, you must go to this parade. It is an absolutely do not miss the parade. You must see the parade. That being said, and here's my hot take, once you have seen the parade one time, never go again because it is completely worth it if you've never seen that spectacle before. But once you have seen it, unless you're getting so involved that you're part of the parade, which you can do if you're a DragonCon regular, unless you do that, my own feeling is that it's not really a great use of your time and energy, especially because a lot of things then happen during the parade that are happening inside the buildings, where the people who are at those are people who are not the day trippers, the people who are really sort of dedicated. It's also a good time to go get autographs. Anything that would take a line will definitely be shorter at that time. And the time and energy and the things you can do during that time, once you've seen the parade once, totally worth it. So I would say it is an absolutely, you must go. If it's your first time to DragonCon, you must go see the parade. And if you have seen the parade, you absolutely must not. Instead, you must go to many of the other things on Saturday. And so for that reason, I said, like, whether it'd be good to go on a day trip or not, Saturday, I would say if it's your first time, you got to go on Saturday. It's going to be rough to get in there because I feel like half of Atlanta goes to see the parade, the spectacle that the parade is. So I would argue, you should go and see that the first time. But if you've been there once before, that's also the most difficult day to move around and get through the buildings. And so I would suggest going on Friday or Sunday if you've been before and only have one day to go. Okay, so that is my strong opinion about the parade and everything associated with it. Okay, so what should you do? Well, they have a main programming track, and the main programming track is the ones where you get to see, a panel of, celebrities from your favorite show or your favorite author talking about their book or whatever. And those are usually in huge rooms with lots and lots of people, long lines, and big celebrities. And if that's really what you want out of the con, you probably want to spend most of your time in the main programming. Now, what I would say is, if you're frustrated that you don't get to go to Comic-Con because it's a bad time of year for you, or it's far away, you can't afford to go, or whatever, and what you really want is to go to Comic-Con, you want to go to the main programming. If, however, you're not really so interested in, I don't care if I see this celebrity or that celebrity, I want to go hang out with fans, I want to go hang out with other people, basically find my community, then I would say that unless it's an absolute must-see, I would actually avoid the main program. I tend to never go to main programming events for that reason. Because for me, it's more about meeting this sort of community. And I know some people have said, well, you just want to go meet a community of fans. But in fact, my nerd friends are all there. And we get to do a lot of different fun things. So what I would say is explore the fan tracks, find the fandoms that you're interested in, look at those tracks, and go to some of those things. And really, when you escape the main programming, like the main programming is where you're going to get to see the celebrities. The fan tracks, you're going to see way fewer celebrities, but you're going to see more people who are really, really interested in what you are interested in. And what I would say is when you're there, don't be afraid to meet other people there. Frankly, there was a time when con culture was way more obscure and niche than it is now. Those days are behind us. And so at that time, it was only the nerdiest of the nerdy who were there. Now it's way more mainstream. But that doesn't mean that, you still have that kind of introverted element there, who've really just come because this is the time that they get to reach out and meet other people who are interested in what they're interested in. So don't be afraid to introduce yourself to other people who are attending the same tracks. Assume if you're in a fan track room, that the other people there are also fans of the thing that you're fans of, and you will be able to make friends way more easily than you would otherwise. And frankly, the geekier and dorkier the thing is, the thing that you think, oh, people make fun of me for liking this, absolutely go to this fan tracks, because you'll find people who not only won't make fun of you, but have literally traveled sometimes from other countries, just so they can meet people who are into the same thing. So find your fan tracks. And aside from that, what if you have downtime? What if you have time where I don't know what to do? And this happens very often at, oh my gosh, not just conventions. Every academic conference I've been to, there's been a time when there were 3 sessions I wanted at the same time, and I had to choose and felt bad about the 2 that I missed. And there would be maybe a 2-hour or 2-session blocks back to back where there was absolutely nothing that I knew anything about or was interested in. And what I would urge you to do in those times is go see something that you know nothing about. Every year when I go to DragonCon, I always make a point of it to go to something I know nothing about and find another fandom. And I would say, some small fraction of the time, maybe a third of the time, I go in and it's not my thing. The reason I've never heard of it is because no one suggested it to me, because they know that this would not be a thing I'd be interested in. But the other 2/3 of the time, either I find it really interesting and I think, why didn't I know that this thing existed, or this is a thing I could do, or this was an author I could read, or a film series I could watch. Or even though it's still not exactly my thing, I'm really taken by the passion of the other fans and really love their passion and their love for the thing that they love, the thing that brings them there. So I would urge even old hands who've been to DragonCon year after year after year, like me, to every year go to a thing which you've never been to before. A thing, especially if you don't even know what it is. Okay, so that being said, a few other sort of broad categories that I recommend. Is a tradition in my family that at the end of DragonCon, we always go, before we go, we see the battle bots. We go see the robots fighting each other. I enjoyed the TV show, or TV shows, Robot Wars and BattleBots back in the day. And I know there's another version on, which I think is BattleBots today, but Twitter, keep your corrections to yourself. I don't care that much because they're okay. I'll watch them when they're on, but being there and watching is really visceral. It's just amazing and exciting. I would recommend you go down to the game room. You can, for a small fee, get a little pass so you can get games, rent games for the entirety of the con. And what I would recommend you do is, there are all these games that you've heard of. Maybe you've never played Ticket to Ride. Maybe you've never played Settlers of Catan. And those games can be expensive, and maybe you don't know if you want to spend the money on. It's a great time to go find a group that's playing it, or get your friends together and just borrow the game. It's basically a game library that you can borrow the game and use it and play it and try it out. Even better is if you can find a group of people who already have played the game and say, hey, can I join in? And if there are enough seats, the answer is almost always yes. Another thing, by the way, in the gaming area that I would recommend that you do is consider finding that person who's play testing the game that they're developing. Look, sometimes the games that they're developing aren't very good, aren't going to make it to market, but other times they're really interesting and fascinating ideas. And sitting there with the creator as they passionately describe it to you, it's just a wonderful experience. Speaking of creators, Artist Alley, there are all these artists who are some selling their work, some signing work. That is not to be missed, because a lot of people go there because they think, oh, I'm into such and such an artist will be there. So, for example, Lex Fajardo, who does the Kid Beowulf series, will finally be there this year. We've been trying to get him to go for so long. He'll finally be there. Definitely go there and see him. But there are a bunch of other artists there. I don't know the number. I would guess hundreds of artists, at least dozens of artists, who you've never heard of them. You've never seen their work, and you'll see someone and think, I can't believe I've never heard of this before. This is great. And it turns out that this is an artist who's has a lot of fans in Delaware or wherever they're from, and but you've never seen them or heard of them. And so you'll find some wonderful artists there. And you'll also find a general art show, which is a good place to go. It just sort of, you can buy art there, but frankly, it's also kind of acts as a kind of nerd art museum as well. If you have no interest in buying art, just go and look around and see all the different things that they have there. No, I really can't tell you all the different things. They have, if you like cosplay, you don't want to miss the cosplay competitions, because the cosplay competitions are people who spend all year knowing that they're going to be competing at this. If you are interested in, well, really basically any element of geek culture, there's music in the atriums, there's everything that you could imagine. You could, if you are interested in spending 3 days not sleeping, doing nothing but sitting watching anime, they've got film tracks for you. So I would recommend that you sample from so much that you can. Don't imagine you can do everything. Just do what you want to do. So before I go, I want to list a few things that I would be doing if I were there. This is my counterfactual. If I could go this year, what would I definitely be attending? And there are lots of sessions. I love the comics and popular arts conference sessions, even though, I mean, obviously I'm a coordinator of that, but I would go to them even if I were not. They're just wonderful. And so I'm just want to list, I can't include them all for sure, but you can go to the Comics and Popular Arts Conference. You can Google them, or us rather, and find the list of sessions that we have. But so Friday, August 31st at 5:30, there's the groundwork of the metaphysics of dungeons, designing dungeon crawls for teaching and the tabletop gaming track. That's in the. That just sounds really, really interesting and great, and I'd be fascinated to see that. There are so many good sessions, by the way, at 1 o'clock on Saturday. Not a surprise, thanks to the all the so many people will be outside for the parade that this kind of inside. That's when things start really rocking inside, in my opinion. And so there are two things that I would really. They're both at the same time at 1, but I would have loved to go to either one of them. One is we work with what we have, the postmodern horror of the cabin in the woods. And it's basically the intertextual nature of Cabin in the Woods, which those of you who've seen it will immediately know what the subject is. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend watching Cabin in the Woods. Another one in the manga anime track is Do Mecha Dream of Electric Sheep? And I would say, so the description is, this panel explores the cultural implications of the complicated relationships between mecha and their pilots across multiple anime series. And if you just listen to that, I think you don't get a sense of how great this will be, because the two panelists in there, one is John Flowers, and he is a real specialist in particularly Japanese art and philosophy. The other is Damian Williams, who really is a specialist in the philosophy of artificial intelligence. And so these two guys together, like, I have very little interest in anime and manga, but to hear those two guys on a panel together talking about anime and manga, that just sounds great. So if you have even the slightest interest in that, I would say go to that for sure. Gosh, there's so many other good ones. I guess I will pick just one more. This is for the academic types, but I think this would be useful otherwise. At 2:30 on Monday, so really late in the con, there is Cataloging Days and Future Past, lesson from a small college with a large comics collection, and they're really talking about how to do. It sounds like they're going to be talking about how to do scholarly research with comic books, what to do with a real sort of academic collection. And how to move forward with that. And that just sounds really interesting to me. Obviously, if you're not interested in the research side, that's probably not going to be for you. But if you are a professorial type, I'm not. I know the book that I'm the scholarly book that I'm sort of working with publishers now to see if we can get all the permissions we need, is a book about comic books, but I'm generally not a comic book fan, which is weird because so many of the nerddoms I hang out with are comic book nerddoms. But even though I'm not a comic book fan, I have a tiny collection of comic books, which I wouldn't even call a collection because it sounds intentional, and it's not. Even that, that just sounds really fascinating to me, and the way that you handle them for research. Okay, so I have, this is quite lengthy, but I just wanted to give a little sense of, for those of you who are newbies, of what you might do at DragonCon. If you don't remember these things, just, or if you think there's something awesome that I haven't mentioned, feel free to talk about it in the comments below, because there just are way, way, way too many things for, to mention, even frankly, probably in an entire series of netcasts on the subject. Okay, so minions, if you manage to spot me at DragonCon this year, because like I said, there's a chance I may be able to make it for a few hours, I'll give you a prize. I don't know what the prize is yet, but I don't want to have you out there looking for me and I'm not there if I'm in Long Island or wherever. But I do. If you do see me, I would like to be able to give you something. So I'll figure out something. I'll see you guys on the other side.